What happens when the weakest wolf in the kingdom discovers she was never weak at all? For Alara Ashwood, life as an Omega meant silence. It meant keeping her head down through countless pack gatherings, enduring the pitying looks and whispered conversations that stopped the moment she entered a room. The daughter of Beta advisors who served the crown with unwavering loyalty, she should have been respected. Instead, she was tolerated, a stain on her family's otherwise pristine reputation. The weakest designation a wolf could carry, unable to shift fully, even at 23 years old, her wolf nothing more than a whisper in the back of her mind that never quite emerged. But when Alpha King Darius Blackthorn chose the lunar ceremony, the most sacred night of the year, witnessed by every pack in the Northern Territories, to reject their fated bond in front of 2,000 wolves, everything changed. And what happens next? No one was prepared for. Not the king who cast her out. Not the parents who watched in silence. And certainly not the 10 ancient wolves who had been waiting in the wilderness for a prophecy older than the kingdom itself. The scent of lavender and morning dew, Alara's signature that marked her as clearly as her name, had been fading for hours now as she stumbled through snow that reached her knees. The blizzard had come from nowhere, or perhaps the moon goddess herself had summoned it. Either way, Alara no longer cared. The ceremony had been flawless until the moment King Darius took her hand. She could still feel the warmth of the great hall, packed with wolves from every territory. Alphas in their finest ceremonial leathers. Betas coordinating the evening with military precision. Even the Omegas had been given places of honor for this night. The night when the moon goddess revealed sacred bonds, when fated mates found each other under her silver light. Alara had felt it first as a pull in her chest, then as a burning that spread through her veins like liquid starlight. The bond had snapped into place so violently that she'd gasped, and suddenly everyone was staring. Not at her, at the golden thread of light that appeared between her heart and the Alpha King's, visible to every wolf present. A fated bond, the rarest gift the moon goddess could bestow. For 3 perfect seconds, Alara had seen her future transform. She'd seen respect in the eyes that usually held pity. She'd seen her parents straighten with pride. Then she'd seen King Darius's face twist with disgust. No, his voice had carried through the hall like thunder. The scent of forest and embers and cold steel, his signature, had turned acrid with revulsion. I reject this bond. I, Alpha King Darius Blackthorn, refuse the mate bond with Alara Ashwood. The pain had been instantaneous, like someone had reached into her chest and torn her heart in half. The golden thread shattered, each piece dissolving into sparks that burned as they died. Alara had fallen to her knees, unable to breathe, unable to think past the agony radiating through every cell of her body. "You cannot be serious," someone had whispered. "A rejection at the lunar ceremony?" "She's an Omega," Darius had replied, loud enough for everyone to hear. Unable to even shift. How could the moon goddess expect me to rule with such weakness at my side? He'd turned to the crowd, his voice rising. "I will take a chosen mate, someone strong, someone worthy of standing beside an Alpha King." A woman had stepped forward then, Celeste Ravenclaw, daughter of the Eastern Pack's Alpha. Beautiful and deadly, her scent of cinnamon and iron filled the space Alara's lavender had occupied. Celeste had smiled, sharp and victorious, as she'd taken Alara's place beside the king. "Remove her," Darius had ordered, not even looking at Alara as she writhed on the floor. "She served her purpose by revealing what won't be." The guards had dragged her out while she screamed, while the bonds severing carved pieces from her soul. Her parents, had stood frozen in the crowd, her mother's hand over her mouth. Her father's face pale but motionless. Neither had moved to help. They'd thrown her beyond the pack's borders, with nothing but the thin ceremonial dress she'd worn. White silk that was supposed to represent purity and new beginnings. Now it was torn and stained, offering no protection against the storm that had descended within minutes of her exile. Ilara's bare feet had gone numb a mile ago. She couldn't feel her fingers anymore. The forest stretched endlessly in every direction, and the snow fell so thick she couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. She found the barn by accident, or perhaps by the moon goddess's last mercy. A collapsed structure. Half its roof caved in, but one corner still offered shelter from the wind. Ilara crawled inside, her body shaking so violently her teeth rattled. This is it, she thought, curling into the driest corner she could find. This is how I die. The irony wasn't lost on her. Rejected by her fated mate, cast out by her pack, abandoned by her parents. Unable to shift into the wolf form that might have kept her warm, might have given her a chance to survive. She was exactly what Darius had called her. Weak. Ilara closed her eyes and let the cold sink deeper. At least the pain in her chest from the broken bond was fading. Everything was fading. The world grew distant, muffled, soft. I'm sorry, she whispered to the wolf that had never fully emerged. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough for either of us. Darkness claimed her with surprising gentleness. Warmth. That was Ilara's first conscious thought. She was warm. The second thought was that she shouldn't be alive. She opened her eyes slowly, expecting to find herself in the moon goddess's realm, whatever that might look like. Instead, she found herself in the same barn, but the cold had vanished. The space around her radiated heat, and when she tried to move, she realized why. Wolves surrounded her. Massive wolves, each one larger than any alpha she'd ever seen. Orchestrated narrative structure with plot milestones and word count tracking. Good start. I'm establishing the story following the requirements. I need to continue with her counting the wolves, up to 10. The alpha leader revealing himself, the "we've been waiting for you" line. Then move into Act 3 with the prophecy and transformation. Let me continue building this out, making sure I hit all the required elements, while keeping it original and engaging. I need to track my word count to ensure I meet the 8,000, 10,000 word requirement. Ilara froze, her heart hammering. She counted them, barely breathing. One massive silver wolf pressed against her left side. Two more, one black as midnight, one deep russet at her feet. 3, 4, 5 forming a protective semicircle at her back. 6 and 7 flanking the entrance. 8, 9, and 10 spread throughout the barn, positioned like sentries. 10 wolves. 10 enormous, powerful wolves who radiated alpha energy so strong, the air itself seemed to shimmer around them. They'd kept her alive through the night. Their bodies had been her shelter, their warmth her salvation. The silver wolf stirred, and Ilara scrambled backward until her shoulders hit the wall. But the wolf didn't attack. Instead, he rose gracefully to his feet, easily 5 feet tall at the shoulder, and the air around him began to shimmer. The shift was the most beautiful thing Ilara had ever witnessed. Not the violent, painful transformation she'd seen in others, but fluid as water, graceful as smoke. Bones flowed rather than cracked. Fur dissolved into tan skin, marked with scars that spoke of countless battles. Within seconds, a man stood before her. He was older than Darius by perhaps a decade, his dark hair threaded with silver that matched his wolf form. Scars crossed his chest, and arms like a map of violence survived. But his eyes, pale gold, almost amber, held a gentleness that seemed impossible in someone who radiated such raw power. The scent of aged oak and winter snow and pine filled the space, cutting through the lingering traces of her lavender. It was a wild scent, ancient, nothing like the cultivated power of the court alphas she'd known. "Easy," he said, his voice like distant thunder. "We're not here to harm you." "Who are you?" Alara's voice came out as barely a whisper. "What do you want?" The man, the alpha, lowered himself to one knee so his eyes were level with hers. The gesture should have been humbling, but somehow it only emphasized his power. This was someone who knelt for no one, which made his choice to kneel now even more significant. "My name is Cale Stormborn," he said. "These are my brothers." He gestured to the 9 wolves still surrounding them. "We've been searching for you for a very long time." "Searching?" Alara's laugh came out broken. "Why? I'm nobody. I'm an Omega who can't even shift." You're the matriarch." Cale's words cut through her protests like a blade. "And we've been waiting for you." The world seemed to tilt. Alara shook her head. "That's impossible. The matriarch is a myth, a story told to children." "No." Another wolf shifted, this one becoming a woman with silver-streaked black hair and eyes like polished obsidian. Her scent of cedar and storm clouds marked her as powerfully as Kyle's. "The matriarch is as real as the moon above us, as real as the bond that was just shattered, freeing you from the chains they wrapped around your soul before you could even walk." "Freeing me?" Alara touched her chest, where the broken bond still ached. "That rejection nearly killed me. It broke the binding." Kyle reached out slowly, telegraphing his movement, and touched her shoulder. His hand was warm and solid, and impossibly gentle. "May I show you something?" Alara nodded, not trusting her voice. Cale's eyes began to glow, that pale gold brightening until it was almost white. Alara felt a pull, like he was looking not at her, but into her, seeing past skin and bone to something deeper. His expression shifted from calm focus to shock, then to something that looked almost like reverence. "It's true," he breathed. "The binding is cracking. I can see your wolf, Alara. She's enormous. She's been caged inside you your entire life, but the chains are breaking." A third wolf shifted, a massive man with copper hair and a scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. "Tell her the prophecy, Cale. She deserves to know what she is." Cale nodded slowly, his hand still on Alara's shoulder. "There's an ancient text, older than the kingdoms, older than the current pack structures. It speaks of a time when the wolves lost their way, when strength became brutality and power became tyranny. It says, when the weakest is cast out and the strongest bow down, the matriarch will rise. She will be marked by mercy and bound by betrayal. She will come when the moon weeps silver tears, and she will remake the world with gentle fury. 10 will guard her path. The rejected will become the ruler. The broken will become the healer. And all will kneel before the one who was never meant to kneel at all." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning Alara couldn't quite grasp. "That's not me," she whispered. "I'm not strong. I'm not—" "Your parents bound your power when you were 6 months old." The woman spoke again, her voice surprisingly gentle. "I'm Vera. By the way, and before you ask how we know this, we've been watching your pack for 20 years, waiting for the matriarch to be born, then trying to understand why she never emerged." "My parents?" Alara's voice cracked. "What are you talking about?" Kyle shifted his weight, settling more comfortably on the barn floor. The other wolves began shifting too, until 10 figures surrounded her. 6 men and 4 women, all bearing the marks of warriors, all radiating power that made the air thick. 23 years ago, Kyle began. The Northern Territories experienced a surge of power unlike anything in recorded history. A child was born during a lunar eclipse, under a blood moon, at the exact moment the moon goddess's star appeared in the western sky. Every elder, every seer, every wolf, with even a hint of prophetic gift, felt it. A matriarch had been born. But matriarchs don't exist, Alara protested weakly. They do, Vera said. They just haven't been seen in over 3 centuries. The last one reshaped the entire continent, ended a war that had raged for 50 years, and established the peace accords that allowed different packs to coexist. When she died, the role vanished, or so everyone thought. The truth is, the moon goddess chooses a matriarch only when the wolves need one most, when the balance has tipped too far toward violence and domination. A man with dark skin and silver eyes spoke next, his voice carrying a melodic accent. I'm Zane. I was there the night you were born. I watched your parents realize what you were, and I watched them decide to bind your power. Why? The word burst from Alara with more force than she intended. Why would they do that? Fear, Zane said simply. The current power structure depends on alphas maintaining dominance. Your father is a high-ranking beta who's built his entire career on serving alpha interests. A daughter who could command alphas, who could reshape pack law itself, would have destroyed everything he'd worked for. More than that, he was terrified of what might happen to you if others discovered what you were before you were strong enough to defend yourself. So they hired a witch, Kyle continued, someone powerful enough to bind your wolf, to lock away your abilities, to make you appear as the weakest designation possible. An Omega, someone no one would see as a threat. Alara felt sick. My whole life, my entire life, I've been weak because they made me that way. Yes. Kyle's hand tightened on her shoulder. And that rejection from King Darius, as brutal as it was, it shattered the binding. Mate bonds are soul-deep magic. When one breaks, especially a fated bond, it sends a shockwave through everything. The chains on your wolf couldn't survive it. As if in response to his words, Alara felt something stir deep inside her, a presence, a consciousness that wasn't quite her own but was absolutely part of her. Finally, a voice said in her mind, feminine and powerful, and so full of pent-up fury it stole Alara's breath. Finally, I can speak to you. Alara gasped. What, who? I'm you, the voice said. I'm your wolf. I've been trapped inside, screaming for you, trying to reach you for 23 years, and now the chains are breaking. My wolf, Alara whispered aloud. She's talking to me. Kyle smiled, and it transformed his scarred face. Then it's beginning. The question is, are you ready to become who you were always meant to be? Alara looked around at the 10 warriors surrounding her. Who are you really? Why have you been searching for me? We're the Unchained, Kyle said. Wolves who rejected the corrupt pack system generations ago. We live in the wild places, the spaces between territories, serving only the moon goddess herself. When the prophecy came, when we knew a matriarch would rise, we were given a sacred duty, to find her, protect her, and help her reclaim her power. He stood, offering his hand. Will you let us? Alara stared at his hand. Behind him, 9 other warriors waited. Every instinct told her to trust them, even though she'd known them for mere minutes. Maybe it was the way they'd kept her alive through the night. Maybe it was the truth ringing in every word they'd spoken. Or maybe it was her wolf, surging inside her, pushing toward consciousness with desperate urgency. Take his hand, her wolf commanded. Take it and let me show you what we really are. Alara reached out and grasped Kekel's hand. The moment their skin touched, power exploded through her. It started as a warmth in her chest, right where the broken bond ached. But instead of pain, she felt relief. The wound from the rejection knit itself closed, not healing so much as revealing that it had never been the real damage. The real wound had been the binding, and now that the binding was breaking, Alara screamed as her wolf surged forward. "Hold her!" Kyle barked. "Don't let her hurt herself!" Hands grasped her arms, her shoulders. Alara's body convulsed as 23 years of suppressed power fought its way to the surface. Her bones began to shift, but not with the agonizing cracks she'd seen in others. Her skeleton flowed like water, lengthening, strengthening, restructuring itself with a fluidity that should have been impossible. "Don't fight me," her wolf said. "Let me out." Finally, let me out. Fur erupted along Alara's arms, soft and silver-white. Her senses exploded. Suddenly, she could smell everything. The scent of aged oak from Kyle now mingled with concern and excitement. The cedar and storm clouds from Vera, sharp with anticipation. The fear and hope rolling off all 10 of the Unchained in waves she could taste on her tongue. Beyond them, miles beyond, she caught traces of the pack lands, the forest and embers of King Darius, still thick with arrogance, the cinnamon and iron of Celeste, sour with triumph. And underneath it all, like a foundation she'd never noticed, the complex sense of thousands of wolves going about their lives, each one a unique signature she could identify and catalog without even trying. Her hands twisted, fingers becoming claws. Not the simple wolf claws she'd seen before, but something more. They shimmered with an inner light, and when she looked at them, she saw runes appearing on her fur. Ancient symbols that pulsed with power. The barn groaned as energy radiated from her in visible waves. The remaining roof timbers cracked. The walls shuddered. "Outside!" Vera shouted. "Before she brings this down on us!" They hauled her into the snow, and the moment the open sky appeared above her, Alara's transformation completed. Her bones finished flowing into place with a sensation like diving into warm water. Her spine extended, powerful muscles building along its length. Her face restructured itself, pushing forward into a muzzle, her teeth lengthening into fangs that gleamed in the early morning light. And then she grew. 6 feet at the shoulder. 7. 8. The Unchained stepped back, their expressions shifting from concern to awe. 9 feet tall at the shoulder, Alara's wolf form towered over them. Her fur was silver-white, but when the light caught it, colors rippled through. Lavender and gold, and something that looked like starlight. Her eyes, when she opened them, glowed pure white. The power that poured off her bent the air. The snow beneath her feet melted in a perfect circle 20 feet wide. The clouds above swirled, responding to the energy. "Now," her wolf said, satisfaction coloring every word. "Now they'll see what they rejected." Alara tried to speak, and realized she didn't know how to in this form. She opened her mouth, and what emerged was a howl that shook the forest. Trees swayed, birds erupted from branches miles away, and in the pack lands beyond, every wolf would feel that call vibrating in their bones. When the howl faded, Alara stood panting, trying to process her new body. She was huge. She was powerful. She was magnificent. Kale's voice was barely a whisper. He'd dropped to one knee, his head bowed. Around him, the other 9 Unchained did the same. "You're everything the prophecy promised. The matriarch has risen." Alara looked down at her massive form, at the runes glowing across her fur, at the raw power radiating from every inch of her being. She tried to shift back to human form, and found it surprisingly easy. Her bones flowed like water again, and within seconds, she stood on 2 legs, naked except for wisps of mist that seemed to cling to her skin. Vera tossed her a cloak without being asked. That was the most incredible first shift I've ever witnessed. First shift? Ilara's voice came out stronger than before, resonating with an authority she'd never possessed. I've been trying to shift my entire life. No, Kyle said, rising from his knee. You've been trying to break through a binding your entire life. This was your first real shift, and it was perfect. Ilara looked at her hands. They still felt like hers, but different. Stronger. More connected to the rest of her. She could feel her wolf just beneath her skin now. Alert and powerful and ready to emerge at a moment's notice. What happens now? She asked. Kyle smiled. Now we teach you everything you need to know. How to control your power. How to use your abilities. How to become the matriarch this world desperately needs. He glanced at the others. We have time. The Packlands are 3 days' travel from here. They'll have felt your howl, but they won't know what it means. Not yet. 3 days? Ilara's mind raced. And then what? Then, Kale said, his voice turning serious, then you decide what kind of ruler you want to be. The prophecy says you'll remake the world. How you do that, with mercy or with vengeance, that's entirely up to you. The days that followed blurred together in a symphony of discovery and growth. Kyle had claimed they had 3 days, but he immediately set about using every moment. The Unchained moved deeper into the wilderness, to a hidden valley where ancient standing stones marked a place of power older than memory. Here, Kale explained, the boundaries between physical and spiritual were thin. Perfect for a new matriarch to learn control. Shift for me, Kale said on that first morning, standing in the center of the stone circle. Show me you can do it at will. Ilara closed her eyes and reached for her wolf. The presence leaped forward eagerly, and the shift was instantaneous. One heartbeat, she stood on 2 legs. The next, she towered over Kyle in her massive wolf form. Good. Kyle circled her slowly, his gaze analytical. Now shift back. Again, effortless. The flow of bones, the restructuring of form. Ilara found herself human in seconds. They practiced for hours. Shift and shift back. Then partial shifts. Just claws, just enhanced senses, just strength. Ilara discovered she could call on specific aspects of her wolf without fully transforming. Useful for situations where her full form might cause panic. Your size, Vera said on the second day, watching Ilara shift for the 30th time. It's not just impressive, it's significant. Size in wolves correlates directly with power. An alpha typically stands 4 to 5 feet at the shoulder. You're 9 feet. That means your power eclipses even the strongest alpha by a massive margin. But why? Ilara asked, back in human form and wrapped in furs the Unchained had provided. Why am I so much larger? Because you're not just an alpha, Zane said. He'd been teaching her to sense and interpret the complex web of sense that filled every moment. Alphas are pack leaders, strong, dominant, but still bound by pack law and territory. A matriarch transcends all of that. You're meant to lead not just a single pack, but all packs, to rewrite laws that have grown corrupt, to command even other alphas when necessary. That sounds like tyranny, Ilara said quietly. It could be, Keitel agreed, which is why the moon goddess is selective about who receives this power. A matriarch must be capable of mercy, of seeing beyond immediate power to long-term balance. The prophecy says you are bound by betrayal for a reason. You've lived as the lowest, most vulnerable designation. You know what it's like to be powerless. That perspective will shape how you use authority. On the third day, Vera introduced her to her other gifts. "Shift," Vera commanded, and Alara obliged. In her wolf form, Vera approached with one of the other Unchained, a man named Marcus, who bore a fresh wound across his ribs from a hunting accident that morning. "Reach out with your senses," Vera instructed. "Not your nose or ears. The sense beneath those, the one that feels emotions, that reads the energy of living things." Alara tried. At first, she only caught scents and sounds, but gradually, underneath it all, she felt something else. A warmth emanating from Marcus. Not physical heat, something deeper. She could sense his pain, sharp and bright, could feel the way his energy flickered around the wound, trying to heal but struggling. "I can fix that," her wolf said confidently. Alara moved closer to Marcus, who stood very still. She didn't know what she was doing, only that she needed to. She pressed her massive muzzle against his wounded side, and power flowed from her like a river breaking through a dam. Golden light enveloped Marcus. He gasped, his eyes widening, and when the light faded, the wound had closed. Not scarred over, completely healed, as if it had never existed. "Moon's mercy," Marcus breathed. "I felt nothing but warmth, no pain, just wholeness." "Healing," Kyle said, wonder in his voice. The texts mentioned it, but seeing it, he shook his head. "Matriarchs can heal others. Major wounds, chronic illnesses, even some poisons. You're going to save a lot of lives, Alara." But it wasn't just healing. Over the next hours, they discovered Alara could sense emotions with crystal clarity. She could tell when someone lied, when they were afraid, when they were conflicted. And more than that, she could project calm. When one of the Unchained became agitated during a disagreement, Alara had instinctively pushed a wave of peace toward them. The effect was immediate and profound. Command, Vera named it. Not mind control. You can't make someone do something against their nature, but you can influence emotional states. Calm rage, soothe fear, inspire courage. Combined with your size and power, you'll be able to prevent conflicts before they start. The found family dynamic emerged naturally. Each member of the Unchained took turns training different aspects of Alara's abilities. Marcus taught her combat. Not that she needed much instruction when she could simply overpower most opponents through sheer size, but technique mattered. Vera worked on strategy and pack politics. Zane continued scent training until Alara could identify individual wolves from miles away. But Kyle was different. He didn't just train her. He understood her in ways the others didn't. When she woke from nightmares about the rejection, reliving Darius's disgust and her parents' betrayal, Kyle was there. He never offered empty platitudes. Instead, he shared his own story of rejection from a pack that valued brutality over wisdom, his own journey into the wilderness. The hardest part, he told her on the fourth night, they'd lingered longer than planned, wanting to ensure she was truly ready, isn't learning to use power. It's learning when not to use it. You could crush any wolf who challenged you. The question is whether you should. Alara sat beside him near the fire, watching the flames dance. The scent of aged oak and winter snow had become comforting. "What do you think I should do? When we go back, when they see me?" "That's not my decision," Kyle said gently. "But I'll tell you what I see. I see someone who spent 23 years learning compassion because she had no choice. I see someone who understands suffering because she lived it. And I see someone who could choose vengeance. Moon knows you'd be justified, but who I believe will choose something better." "Better?" Alara looked at him. "What's better than making them pay for what they did?" "Building something new," Kyle said. "Not destroying the old out of spite, but transforming it because you know it can be better. That's true power, Ilara. Not crushing your enemies, turning them into allies. His words stayed with her that night and into the next day. On the morning of the 6th day since the rejection, Kale finally stood and announced it was time. "They'll be looking for you," he said. "Or rather, looking for your body. 6 days in winter conditions, they'll assume you're dead. Let's prove them wrong." The Unchained prepared to travel, but Ilara hesitated. "Kyle, I've been meaning to ask. The prophecy said 10 would guard my path. But who are you to me? Are you my guard? My... what?" Kale met her eyes steadily. The scent of aged oak intensified, mixing with something warmer. The bond Darius rejected was fated, chosen by the moon goddess without consulting either of you. It might have grown into love, or it might have been miserable. You'll never know now. He took a step closer. But there's another kind of bond, a chosen bond. One built on respect, trust, and time. That bond is stronger because it's freely given. Ilara's breath caught. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying I've waited a very long time to meet you," Kyle said softly. "I'm saying that my duty is to guard and guide the matriarch. But what I feel when I look at you has nothing to do with duty." He reached out and traced her jaw with one finger. "I'm saying that when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'd like to earn a place at your side that goes beyond prophecy and obligation." The air between them charged with possibility. Ilara felt her wolf stir, pleased, but she didn't push. This was Ilara's choice to make. "Then let's start with trust," Ilara said finally. "Walk beside me, teach me, and we'll see where the path leads." Kyle's smile could have lit the darkest night. They traveled for 3 days back toward the Packlands. But they didn't rush. The Unchained used the time to tell Ilara stories of the last matriarch, of the changes she'd made, of the wolves who'd tried to resist, and ultimately knelt before her wisdom. "The parallel is striking," Vera said as they walked. She was also an Omega initially, also rejected by a powerful Alpha who later regretted it deeply. The cycle repeats because the lesson hasn't been learned. On the 2nd day, they encountered a lone scout from the Northern Territories, a young beta male who froze the moment he caught Ilara's scent. "Ilara Ashwood," his voice shook. "You're supposed to be dead." "Clearly, I'm not." Ilara kept her voice level, non-threatening. The scout's fear was palpable, rolling off him in waves she could taste. "What are you doing out here?" "Looking for your body," he admitted. "The king decreed that you be found and given proper burial rites. He's been—" The scout trailed off, clearly uncomfortable. "He's been what?" Kale's voice held a dangerous edge. "Different. Distracted. The bond rejection affected him more than he expected. He's been snapping at everyone, barely sleeping. Lady Celeste is displeased." Ilara filed that information away. "Tell your king I'm alive and well. Tell him the rejected Omega survived. Tell him—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Tell him justice is coming. Not vengeance. Justice." The scout's eyes widened. He bowed quickly, a gesture of respect Ilara had never received before, and fled. "They'll mobilize," Marcus said grimly. "The moment he reports back, Darius will send warriors. He can't let news of your survival spread." "It makes him look weak that he couldn't even kill an Omega properly." "Good," Ilara said. "Let them come. It's time the Northern Territories met their matriarch." That night, they made camp on the border of Packlands. Ilara could smell home from here, her old home at least. The mingled scents of thousands of wolves, some familiar, most not. Somewhere in there, her parents were going about their lives. Somewhere, Darius sat on his throne, pretending the broken bond didn't haunt him. And somewhere, Celeste was probably already plotting how to eliminate the threat Ilara represented. "Tomorrow," Kale said, sitting beside her as the others prepared for sleep. "Tomorrow changes everything." "I'm terrified," Ilara admitted. "You should be." Kyle's honesty was one of the things she'd come to appreciate. "You're about to challenge an entire power structure, but you're not alone. 10 of the most deadly warriors in the world have your back. And more than that, you have something Darius never will." "What's that?" "The moral high ground." Casual's smile was fierce. He rejected and exiled his fated mate. You survived despite his cruelty. When wolves hear that story, when they see you standing tall and strong and refusing to be broken, they'll question everything they thought they knew about power. Ilara leaned against him, and Kyle wrapped an arm around her shoulders. The gesture felt natural, comfortable. The scent of aged oak and winter snow wrapped around her like a promise. "Thank you," she said softly, "for finding me, for believing in me." "Thank you for being worth finding," Kyle replied. They sat in comfortable silence until the moon rose high above them. The same moon that had witnessed her rejection now watched over her emergence as something infinitely more powerful. Tomorrow, the Northern Territories would learn what happened when you cast out the one wolf who should have been cherished above all others. The pack mobilized faster than even Marcus predicted. Dawn had barely broken when Ilara caught the scent of wolves approaching. Not a small scouting party, a full war band. 25 warriors, all alphas or elite betas, moving in coordinated formation. At their head, the unmistakable scent of forest and embers and ozone and steel. King Darius himself had come. "Positions," Kale ordered quietly. The Unchained spread out, creating a protective formation around Ilara. They didn't shift yet, but power radiated from them like heat from a forge. Ilara stood in the center of a clearing, deliberately exposed. She wore simple leather clothing the Unchained had provided, sturdy but unremarkable. Nothing about her appearance suggested power. She wanted them to see her as she'd always been, insignificant, harmless Ilara Ashwood, before she showed them the truth. The warband emerged from the tree line in wolf form. 25 massive predators that should have been terrifying. Once, they would have been. But now, Ilara could sense each individual, their confidence, their aggression, their underlying uncertainty. They'd been told to capture or kill a rogue Omega. They weren't prepared for what they were actually facing. Darius shifted first, his transformation smooth and practiced. He stepped forward, every inch the Alpha King, radiating authority and command. Behind him, his warriors shifted as well, creating an intimidating wall of naked flesh and barely restrained violence. And there, near the back, Celeste. Her cinnamon and iron scent cut through the morning air, sharp with anticipation. She'd come to watch Ilara die. Instead, she was about to witness the end of everything she'd schemed for. "Ilara," Darius's voice held carefully controlled emotion. "You survived." "Disappointed?" Ilara kept her voice level. Darius faltered, and Ilara caught the scent of confusion mixing with his usual arrogance. "The scout reported you were alive. I had to see for myself." "And now that you've seen," Ilara gestured to the warriors behind him, "you brought an army to greet one helpless Omega. You're not helpless." This came from Celeste, who pushed through the ranks to stand beside Darius. That howl 6 days ago, every wolf in the territory felt it. That was power. Real power. Her eyes glittered. "Where did you get it? What witch did you bargain with?" Ilara laughed, and the sound held an edge that made several warriors step back. "No witch gave me power, Celeste. A witch took it away." My parents hired someone to bind my wolf when I was an infant. Everything you've seen, weak Omega, unable to shift, that was all a lie. A spell designed to keep me helpless. Murmurs rippled through the warband. Darius's eyes widened. That's impossible. Is it? Alara took a step forward. Tell me, Alpha King, how has the rejection been treating you? Sleeping well? Feeling whole and complete with your chosen mate? Darius's jaw clenched. The scent of his emotions turned chaotic. Guilt. Regret, anger, confusion all tangled together. The bond was a mistake. You were weak. I was bound. Alara's voice cracked like thunder, and power rippled from her. The ground beneath her feet trembled. And your rejection, brutal and public and cruel as it was, it shattered that binding. You didn't reject a weak Omega, Darius. You rejected your fated mate and freed something you cannot begin to imagine. Kill her. Celeste's snarl cut through the tension. She's clearly using dark magic. Kill her now before... Celeste didn't finish her sentence. She shifted mid-word, her beautiful human form dissolving into a massive russet wolf that launched herself at Alara. The attack was fast, brutal, and backed by years of combat training. Celeste was a warrior alpha, feared across multiple territories. Her leap should have torn out Alara's throat. Instead, Alara moved, not away, into the attack. She shifted as Celeste flew through the air, and suddenly, the russet wolf found herself face to face with something that made her attack look like a child's tantrum. Alara's full wolf form erupted into existence, 9 feet tall at the shoulder, silver-white fur rippling with colors that shouldn't exist in nature, eyes blazing pure white. Celeste, 4 feet tall, and considered large for a female alpha, looked like a puppy in comparison. Alara caught Celeste mid-leap with one massive paw. The impact should have killed her, but Alara controlled her strength perfectly. Instead of crushing bones, she simply grabbed Celeste and slammed her into the ground. Hard enough to knock the wind from her lungs, not hard enough to cause permanent damage. Celeste tried to rise, snarling, and Alara placed one paw on her chest and pressed. Just enough pressure to hold her down, just enough to make breathing difficult. Submit! Alara pushed the command with her newfound ability, and it crashed over Celeste like a tidal wave. Not mind control, but an overwhelming pressure that demanded acknowledgement of the power difference between them. Celeste fought for 3 seconds, then 5. Then her struggles weakened, and finally, she went limp. Her head turned to the side, exposing her throat in the ultimate gesture of submission. Alara held her there for a moment longer, then lifted her paw and stepped back. She shifted to human form in seconds, standing over Celeste's shaking wolf form without bothering to cover herself. Let them see her confidence. Let them see she feared nothing from them. That is what you came to kill, Alara said, her voice carrying to every wolf present. That is what your king rejected. Now tell me, does she look weak to you? The clearing had gone utterly silent. 25 warriors stood frozen, their eyes wide with shock and dawning fear, and behind them, the Unchained shifted. 10 massive wolves materialized in a semicircle behind Alara. Each one was larger than any alpha present. Kyle's silver form stood 8 feet at the shoulder. Vera's black wolf matched him. The others ranged from 7 to 8 feet, every single one radiating power that made the air shimmer. These weren't normal wolves. These were legends, given flesh. What? Darius's voice came out strangled. What are you? Alara smiled, and it wasn't kind. I'm the matriarch. I'm the wolf your ancestors prayed for when leadership became tyranny. I'm the one who was prophesied to rise when the weakest was cast out and the strongest bowed down. She gestured to the Unchained. These are my guard, the 10 warriors sworn to protect and guide me. And you, Alpha King Darius Blackthorn, you're about to learn what it means to reject a gift from the moon goddess herself. Darius took an involuntary step back. Around him, his warriors began to understand the situation they were in. They'd come to kill one Omega. Instead, they faced 11 wolves who could tear through them like paper. Mercy, Darius whispered. Then, louder, I beg for mercy. The word hung in the air. The Alpha King, the most powerful wolf in the Northern Territories, on his knees, begging. Ilara let the moment stretch. She could feel her wolf urging her toward vengeance, toward making them suffer as she'd suffered. But Kale's words echoed in her mind. The question isn't whether you can crush them, it's whether you should. Tell me why I should show mercy, Ilara said finally. You rejected me publicly. You had me thrown out to die. You chose ambition over destiny. Why should I forgive that? Because I was wrong, Darius's voice cracked. Because every moment since that rejection has been torture. The bond might be broken, but I feel its absence like a wound that won't heal. Because I let pride and tradition blind me to what was truly important. Because, he looked up, meeting her eyes. Because if you kill me now, you prove nothing. But if you show mercy, you prove you're everything a matriarch should be. Clever. Even in defeat. Darius understood political maneuvering. He was right too. Killing him would satisfy her rage, but accomplish little else. Justice then, Ilara said. Not vengeance, not mercy, justice. She raised her voice. Here are my terms. First, the Northern Territories will revise all laws regarding Omegas. They are not lesser wolves. They are different. The designation system itself is flawed and will be reformed. Gasps rippled through the warriors. Darius nodded slowly. Second, Lady Celeste will be stripped of her rank and titles. She will serve the territory as a standard beta for 1 full year, learning what it means to have no power, no privilege. After that year, if she's proven herself capable of humility, her rank may be reconsidered. Celeste, still in wolf form, let out a whimper, but she didn't protest. Third, my parents will confess their crime publicly. They bound an infant's power out of fear and ambition. The pack will hear the truth, and they will face judgment from their peers, not from me. Darius nodded again, his expression grave. And finally, Ilara turned to Coil, who shifted to human form beside her. This is Kale Stormborn, leader of the Unchained. He and his warriors will be granted amnesty and recognition. They are not rogues. They are servants of the moon goddess, and they will be treated with the respect they deserve. Agreed, Darius said immediately. All of it. Agreed. Ilara took a breath. This next part was crucial. I will not rule the Northern Territories. That's your responsibility, Darius, and I won't take it from you. But I am the matriarch. When pack law conflicts with what's right, I will intervene. When leaders abuse their power, I will stop them. When the weak need protection, I will provide it. She let power ripple through her voice. This is my territory now. All of it. Every pack, every border, every wolf falls under my authority when justice demands it. Do you understand? Yes, matriarch. Darius bowed his head. Around him, the warriors dropped to their knees. Even Celeste, still in wolf form, pressed herself flat to the ground. Then go, Ilara commanded. Return to the packlands. Spread the word. The matriarch has risen. The old order is ending. Something better is beginning. The warriors retreated quickly, eager to escape. Darius lingered for a moment, his eyes finding Ilara's. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Truly. I cannot undo what I did. But I will spend my life trying to be worthy of the mercy you've shown today." Alara nodded once. Darius shifted and followed his warriors into the trees. Only Celeste remained, still pressed to the ground. Alara approached her slowly, crouching beside the wolf who'd tried to kill her. "You were taught that power was everything," Alara said softly. "That strength meant dominance and control. But you're about to learn a different lesson. Power is responsibility. Strength is protection. And true authority comes from earning respect, not demanding it." She touched Celeste's head gently. "You have 1 year to understand that. Don't waste it." Celeste shifted to human form, tears streaming down her face. I don't understand. Why not kill me? I attacked you. I tried to—" "Because I was where you are," Alara said. "Not in action, but in position. Powerless, humiliated, desperate. The difference is, I learned compassion from it. Now it's your turn to learn. Go." Celeste fled without another word. When she was gone, Alara finally allowed herself to collapse. Kyle caught her before she hit the ground, his arms strong and steady around her. "You did it," he murmured into her hair. "You faced them down and you chose justice. I'm so proud of you." "I wanted to kill them," Alara admitted. "Especially Celeste. I wanted to make her suffer. But you didn't." Kyle pulled back to look at her face. "That's what makes you a true matriarch. Not the power, the restraint." Around them, the Unchained shifted to human form, their expressions ranging from impressed to reverent. Vera approached and bowed deeply. "You honor the title," she said simply. Marcus clapped her on the shoulder. "That was the most badass thing I've ever witnessed. You're going to be legendary." Alara laughed, exhausted and exhilarated in equal measure. "What happens now?" "Now," Kale said, his smile warm and full of promise. "Now we begin building the world you just created, together." 3 months later, the changes were undeniable. The Northern Territories had transformed under Alara's influence. The designation system remained. Wolves still varied in strength and temperament, but the laws around it had been completely rewritten. Omegas could hold positions of authority. Betas could challenge for alpha positions if they proved themselves worthy. And alphas faced consequences for abusing their power. Darius proved surprisingly capable once his pride stopped clouding his judgment. He implemented Alara's reforms with genuine dedication, and though he would never hold her heart, he earned her respect. The broken bond still ached sometimes, but Alara had learned to live with scars. Celeste's transformation was slower, but real. Stripped of her rank, forced to serve rather than be served, she began to understand the world from a different perspective. Alara visited her once a month, not as punishment, but as mentorship. There was potential in Celeste, potential that had been twisted by ambition, but could be redirected toward something better. Alara's parents faced the Pack's judgment. The confession of their crime shocked everyone. Her mother wept as she explained the fear that drove them, the desperate desire to protect their daughter from a world that might have destroyed her before she was ready. Her father stood silent, accepting whatever judgment came. The Pack didn't banish them. Instead, they were sentenced to community service. 5 years helping the weakest members of the Pack, learning to value those they'd once dismissed. It was a mercy Alara advocated for, though she made clear that forgiveness would take time. "They loved you in their way," Kyle said one evening, as they watched the sunset from the valley, where Alara had first awakened to her power. A twisted, fearful way that caused immense harm, but love nonetheless. "I know," Alara said, "and maybe someday I'll fully forgive them. But not yet." Kyle nodded, understanding. They sat in comfortable silence, his arm around her shoulders, her head resting against his chest. Over the months, their bond had deepened naturally. No fated magic compelled them. No prophecy forced their connection. Instead, they'd chosen each other through shared experiences, mutual respect, and a love built on genuine compatibility. "The Unchained are settling well," Kyle said eventually. "Zane is training a new generation of scouts. Vera's revolutionizing pack strategy. Marcus is insufferable about his combat students." Ilara laughed. "They're happy." "They're home," Kyle corrected. "For the first time in generations, we're not wandering. We're building something permanent." He turned to look at her. "Is that what you want? Permanence?" "Yes." Ilara didn't hesitate. "I've spent my whole life feeling displaced. Now I've found where I belong." She met his eyes. "Found who I belong with." Cale's smile lit his whole face. He pulled her closer, and their lips met in a kiss that promised forever. Not the instant. Overwhelming connection of a fated bond, but something steadier, deeper, chosen. When they finally pulled apart, Ilara noticed something in the sky. The moon was rising, full and bright, but around its edges, a reddish tinge was spreading. "Is that," she began, "a blood moon?" Cale's expression turned serious. "The first one since the night you were born?" Ilara stood, and Kyle rose with her. Around them, the Unchained emerged from the settlement they'd built, all staring at the crimson-edged moon. "The prophecy mentioned a blood moon," Vera said quietly. "Said it would mark the matriarch's rise and the coming of a great trial." "What kind of trial?" Ilara asked, though part of her already knew. Power like hers wouldn't go unchallenged forever. Kyle took her hand. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." The blood moon rose higher, painting the world in shades of red and silver, and in the distance, carried on a wind that smelled of old magic and older dangers, Ilara heard a howl. Not from the northern territories, not from any pack she knew, from somewhere beyond the borders, from something ancient and hungry and aware that a matriarch had risen again. "Let them come," Ilara said, her voice steady despite the chill running down her spine. "I was cast out weak and broken. I survived. I grew. And now I'm ready for whatever comes next." She shifted, and her massive silver-white form gleamed under the blood moon. Kyle shifted beside her, followed by the rest of the Unchained. 11 legendary wolves standing together, ready to face whatever darkness approached. Because Ilara Ashwood was no longer the rejected Omega. She was the matriarch. And her story was just beginning. And so Ilara's journey transformed from tragedy to triumph. The wolf who'd been rejected discovered she'd never needed acceptance from those who couldn't see her worth. Instead, she found a family who'd been searching for her, a purpose that went beyond mere survival, and a love built on choice rather than fate. She learned that true strength isn't about domination, but about lifting others up. That justice and mercy aren't opposites, but partners. And that sometimes the greatest power comes not from who you were born to be, but who you choose to become. What would you have done in her place? Would you have chosen vengeance or justice? Would you have forgiven those who betrayed you, or made them suffer as you suffered? If this story moved you, resonated with you, or made you think about power and purpose differently, please take a moment to like this video. Drop a comment telling me what you thought of Ilara's transformation, or which member of the Unchained was your favorite. And share this story with someone who needs to remember that rejection isn't the end. Sometimes it's the beginning of something far greater. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss the next chapter in this world. Because Alara's story isn't over. The blood moon has risen, ancient forces stir in the darkness, and the matriarch's greatest challenges still lie ahead. Thank you for listening to Alara's journey. We'll see you in the next chapter.